about their schools and about their teachers and about their kids. And so she contacted me and said, I'd like to get people involved in the Pleasant Hills community. I'd like to organize a canvassing event, and I'd like to have people meet Conor. So I said yes, and we want to do more of these in various communities, especially where there's an opportunity to talk to people who maybe haven't been out to vote in a while, or who could switch their votes back, or who could switch parties, because it's a good opportunity to get the word out about Conor. So if you would like to host something like that in your community, if you're not from Pleasant Hills, please let me know. And I would be happy to help coordinate something like that. And then I'm going to turn it over to Bill Hortz to say a few words as well.
Well, thank you. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming out today, this wonderful event. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Bill Hortz. I'm the state representative for 38th District. And again, I want to thank you for coming. Last night, watching Hardball with Chris Matthews, if any of you saw it right at the very end of the program, he talked about Conor Lamb running for the seat and how it's going to be a bellwether. He talked about how he's going to win the union vote. And they went back and forth, and this seat's up for grabs. And you know it's up for grabs because they sent their commander-in-chief in here to kind of campaign for the guy, right? Pretty telling. They know this seat is up for grabs. And we know this seat can be won, and I know it's going to be won by this young man right here. Why? Because Conor Lamb stands for jobs for the middle class, for the union workers, for education, educating our kids and doing right by our children, right? Health care, and our seniors. That's why he's going to win this race, on the message and being the right candidate. Let's talk about the guy running against him. I've known this gentleman for 8 years. I've known him like the back of my hand. And let me tell you, he's not for jobs. He's not for the union workers. He voted just on December 12th, I have the vote in my pocket, for Senate Bill 166 to attack the unions, paycheck protection. He voted yes against union workers. Let me remind you, there's 57,000 current card-carrying union workers in this district, and another 30,000 that are retired. That's 87,000 people. We're going to get the message out to people that Rick Saccone is against union workers' good wage jobs. He also voted against Act 89, which put money in for roads and bridges and for union workers, and he's against mass transit, hates bus drivers, hates the teachers union. He is not for jobs. He's not for the middle class. This gentleman is. Okay? And I go by how Rick votes. I'm going strictly by his action on his votes. Just in June 30th, he voted no for House Bill 218. That was a general appropriations bill that put all the money in for education. There was an extra $100 million in there for basic ed. There was another $25 million in for special ed, and another $30 million was put in for early childhood education. Bipartisan bill. It was bipartisan. The Senate, the House, Republicans, Democrats agreed to this. There were 27 no votes. Rick Saccone was a no vote. I have it right here. House Bill 218. All you got to do is look it up. I go by what he does, folks. I go by the actions, not his words. And his words on TV, I want to puke. Because it's totally against what his voting record is. Okay? But I don't want to end on a negative note. I want to end on a positive note. Again, this young man is for jobs, union workforce. He's for educating our kids, health care. He's for the seniors. He's the guy that will represent this 18th Congressional District. Let's hear it for Conor Lamb.
Good morning, everybody. Some of you have had the good fortune to meet the last time I came here. It seems like just yesterday, but it was back in November, I think, before the nomination that we came here and met your group. So real happy to be back and happy to go out and knock doors in Pleasant Hills today with anyone that is similarly motivated. This might be the warmest and sunniest day we have for quite a while, so let's take advantage of it. Thank you, Bill, for talking about some specific issues. We are for jobs for the middle class, for the working class, for everybody on our side. We are for teachers. We are for firefighters. We are for the people who are going to build the roads and bridges and infrastructure projects that we need. But beyond some of those specific issues, let me tell you what else we're for. We've seen the consequences in the last 48 hours of what happens when you send people into government who don't want to govern. And I think all of us, Democrats, Republicans, and independents alike, have just had enough of that. I mean, the people who are in leadership in Washington today don't want to do their job. And we have a government shutdown now for the first time ever when one party controls both houses of Congress and the White House. So anyone who wants to blame this on the Senate Democrats is missing the fact that Republicans are fleeing that party like rats from a sinking ship. I mean, they are abandoning them left and right because they're frustrated just like everyone else is. Senator Lindsey Graham said it best last week when he presented a bipartisan immigration deal that would resolve this whole thing. And when that was refused from the White House, he said, you know what? They should throw us all out if we can't get this thing done. Well, I think that's right. It is time for new leadership down there. It's time for people who just want to serve the country. This morning I was at the National Cemetery of the Alleghenies, which is right in our district. We were picking up the wreaths that people had put down before the holidays. And that cemetery is run by the Department of Veterans Affairs. And I had some real questions as I was driving down there this morning. Would it be open for all these citizens who want to come out and do a good thing this morning? Thankfully it was. But it won't be for long if they can't get a basic agreement done to do the blocking and tackling that all of us want. And when you're at an event like that, people come up to you, they find out you're a veteran. I served in the Marine Corps, and they always say thank you for your service. When I was on active duty, people did that for me all the time. In airports, they'd come up to me and buy me coffee, buy me a beer, whatever it was. And it was great. That kind of thing, being thanked for your service is fantastic. But I always remind people, I have a brother and a sister who are both teachers, a mom who's a neonatal intensive care nurse, and no one has ever done that for them. They receive very little recognition and very little thanks for the work that they do. And in this campaign, I've met so many people like that, and I've realized that it's a problem in our society that we really don't give a thank you to everybody that serves, to our teachers, to our nurses, to the people that show up on our construction sites. Well, the best thank you we can give them is action, right? More than talk. We can make sure that people get a prevailing wage. We can make sure that we guarantee people's pension. We can make sure that teachers actually have the tools that they need to do the job. In this tax bill that was recently passed, it's not possible for teachers to deduct what they spend on pens and pencils, but it's possible for businesses to deduct what they spend on pens and pencils. And when a teacher moves from one state to another because they can't find a job in their home district, but they can somewhere else, then it's not possible for them to deduct those moving expenses. But when a big corporation moves its job overseas, they get to deduct all of it. That's how messed up things are today in our government, and it's time for us to fix that. But it is going to be very, very hard work. So the reward that you get for being on the right side is that we're actually going to have to work harder. It's not going to get any easier. We're standing in the middle of a congressional district right now that was drawn to make what we're trying to do here impossible. I mean, they actually brought in a computer program called RedMap to draw these lines. So that's what we're up against, and that's why we're going to be out there knocking doors, not just today, not just tomorrow, not just on weekends, but every single day between now and March 13th and even afterward. And all the super PAC money in the world cannot buy what is happening in the hearts and minds of our people. I mean, we had 250 people show up for an office opening in Carnegie the other night, 150 in Greensburg, a couple weeks before. And by the way, a gentleman came to that office opening in Greensburg. He was in his early 70s. He takes care of his niece who has special needs. She's 14. He should be enjoying his retirement, traveling around the world, doing all the things that people do. But he's not. He's here at home taking care of a family member that needs him. The guy told me that he's been paying Social Security taxes since he was 14 years old. That's how long he's been working and paying into the system. And now what he hears from Paul Ryan and Marco Rubio and all these other guys is that that's an entitlement or some form of welfare or something that's undeserved. I mean, talk about adding insult to injury. Social Security and Medicare are part of the building blocks of our society. It's a promise that we make to people. People like me didn't serve in uniform overseas so that we could see our standard of living drop here at home, and we certainly didn't do it to take things away from our parents and grandparents. We did it to pay back. So that's what we're about. And if you're out there knocking doors with me or making phone calls or whatever you're doing, please deliver that message. Tell people it's not about Nancy Pelosi. It's not about the National Democrats. It's about us here in our community fighting for the basic things that we need to survive and thrive and for our families. So I really want to thank you for coming out. I hope I get to see you a lot between now and March 13th because on our side it's going to be about teamwork. So let me thank you for everything you're doing.
Coming today, but I want you to meet another gentleman in the back in the black coat. His name's
Rob's
Rob Roderick.
Yeah,
He's running, just so everybody knows, Rick Saccone cannot run for his House seat. the State House seat. Rob Roderick is running for that seat. And Rob, thank you for jumping in the race.
And I just want to say, when I was fighting for this nomination back in October, November, Rob was a true friend to me. He took me around this area, introduced me to people. You know, I hadn't spent much time over here before. He was putting his money where his mouth was as a member of the Democratic Party for a long time. He's been a meaningful, you know, leader down there in this part of the world, and everyone should support him for this job because he's perfect for it.
Right back at you, Conor.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
I wanted to give Charlene the opportunity to say a few words and to encourage people to go out canvassing this morning. We have walk packets and we'll do some training, but I wanted to give you a minute to say something and why you were inspired to do this.
Well, honestly, I was inspired as soon as I saw Tim Murphy or Murphy leave. I was like, oh my God, I want to get involved. How do I get involved? This is my opportunity. I didn't know how to get involved. I had never been involved before, so I looked up on my phone the Allegheny Democratic Committee. And I was like, wait a second, look it, there's a meeting here in Jefferson Hills. I'm going to show up. So I showed up, and it just so happened that Conor showed up too. And this was before he got the nomination, and quite honestly, when you spoke, you blew us away. You answered our questions, and we really believed in you, and we believed that you could represent our community. When I say not just the 18th district, but West Jefferson Hills School District, because the things that you believe in are the things that we believe in. We believe in education. That is very important to educate our kids and fund our district. We have a lot of kids that are going to college, or maybe they want to go to like a technical school, so they're going to have to take out a student loan. I have a daughter that has a student loan right now. You know, a lot of her friends, when what's-his-face didn't fund education, they had to drop out of school because they couldn't afford it anymore. This, Cal U, Pitt, all that, they hiked their tuition. So they couldn't afford it. They couldn't afford to take out private loans. I was able to pull out $3,000 out of my pocket, to pay for that, but other parents weren't able to. And that was $3,000 that didn't go into my community. I didn't get my shed when I wanted to get my shed. I wasn't able to, revamp my kitchen or whatever it was. So it all matters, So anyway, that's it. This isn't about me. This is about us. And thank you so much. I know you're super big time busy, and thank everybody for coming. I just want to motivate everybody in every school district to get motivated and get out there, because we know our neighbors. They know me. I walk my beagle every day. I know these guys, and I know they would just really love you.
When I was talking to Charlene this morning about walk packets, she said even if she had to take all the walk packets and knock every door, she was going to do it, because that's how passionate she was about her community and her neighbors and Conor. So it's very inspiring. Thank you, Charlene.
Thank you.